Hey animators! Welcome back to the Hilda Character Series. This is part 6. Today, we're diving into one of the most exciting and detailed parts of our rig, Hilda's entire head setup. We'll be rigging every key feature of her head, the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, front hair, back hair, and even her cozy little hat. Plus, we're building a solid head bone system that ties it all together beautifully. Through smart bone actions, inverse kinematics, point binding, and some clever techniques in Moho, we'll make sure everything moves smoothly and expressively. So grab your file, get those rigging tools ready, and let's breathe real life into Hilda's head, piece by piece. Let's get to it and keep the animation magic going. First, I drag the reference image of the boots into the reference group. Then I select the Hilda group. From the bone menu, I click on Show All Bones, just in case any bones were hidden. This brings them back. Next, I right-click on the Hilda group and choose Quick Settings. In the pop-up window, under the Details section, make sure Paths is checked. This will make the outlines of the vector layers visible. Now, it's important to select all of Hilda's layers by holding Shift and clicking each one. Then right-click on any selected layer, go to Quick Settings, enable the Paths option, and click Apply. This step is crucial before starting the head rig. If it's not enabled, make sure to turn it on. After that, I hold Alt and click on the eye icon next to one of the layers to hide all layers. Then I manually turn on just the layers related to the head. Please do the same, only keep the head layers visible. Now I go back to the Hilda group. With the Select Bone tool, I select the existing bone called Scarf Bone 1. Then I use the Add Bone tool to draw a new bone in this area. With the Transform Bone tool, I adjust its position slightly. Then I select the new bone using Select Bone again, rename it to Head Bone, and change its color to orange. Using the Bone Strength tool, I set the strength of this bone to 0. Make sure this bone is parented to the Scarf Bone 1. Now I select the head layer, and with the Bind Layer tool, I click on the head bone to bind the entire head layer to it. I do the same for the head mask layer, bind it to the head bone as well. You can see by manipulating the head bone that the head layer moves with it, confirming the bind is working. Then, still in the Hilda group, I select the head bone again. Using the Add Bone tool, I draw a pin bone just under the nose. I rename this pin bone to Nose-Pin Bone and set its color to orange. Next, I select the Nose-Pin Bone using the Select Bone tool. Then, holding Shift, I use the Add Bone tool to draw a new bone extending upward from the pin bone, positioned along the nose. I name this new bone Nose Bone and set its color to orange. Now I select both the Nose-Pin Bone and the Nose Bone using the Select Bone tool. With the Bone Strength tool, I set the strength of both bones to 0. Then I select only the nose bone, and in the top left corner of the interface, I click on Bone Constraints. In the Constraints panel, I set the angle constraint range for the nose bone from 0 to 70 degrees, then close the panel. Now, using the Layer Selector tool, I click on the nose shape to switch to the nose layer. With the Delete Edge tool, I remove one of the edges of the nose. Next, I select the stroke of the nose using the Select Shape tool, and in the Styles panel, I uncheck the stroke option to hide the stroke temporarily. Using the Transform Points tool, I select and reposition the top point of the nose to better fit the shape. Then, with the Add Points tool, I draw a connecting segment between this adjusted point and the topmost point of the nose. I adjust the Bezier handle slightly to refine the nose curve and get a clean shape. Next, with the Create Shape tool, I select the entire nose outline. While making sure the Both option is active for both fill and stroke, and with the desired fill and stroke color selected, I click Create Shape to finalize the new nose shape. Then I use the line width tool to reduce the stroke thickness at the top and bottom points of the nose for a tapered effect. Finally, I select the stroke exposure tool, click on the nose stroke, and in the Tools Properties panel, I adjust the start and end sliders using the mouse scroll wheel. Perfect! Now, I select the Hilda group, then using the Select Bone tool, I click on the nose bone to select it. Next, I go to the Actions panel, click on the new action icon, confirm the pop-up window, and enter the nose bone action timeline. I move to frame 72, and using the Transform Bone tool, I move the nose bone to the maximum of its constraint limit. Then I switch to the nose layer, select the entire nose shape, and use the Stroke Exposure tool. In the Tools Properties panel, I adjust the start and end values to define the visible portion of the stroke. This is how I make the nose slide from right to left naturally. Once that's done, I double-click on Main Line in the Actions panel to exit the Action Timeline and return to the main timeline. As you can see, I can now easily move the nose left and right by manipulating the nose bone. Just make sure the nose pin bone is parented to the head bone. Also, I select the nose pin bone, go to the nose layer, and use bind layer to bind the entire nose layer to this pin bone. Awesome! The nose setup is now complete. Let's move on to rigging the ears. First, I select the Hilda group, then using the Select Bone tool, I select the head bone. Next, I use the Add Bone tool to draw a bone for the left ear like this. I change its color to orange and name it left ear bone. Then, I use the Layer Selector tool to click on the left ear and switch to its layer. Using the Bind Layer tool, I bind the entire left ear layer to the left ear bone. Now, I go back to the Hilda group, again select the head bone with the Select Bone tool. Then I use the Add Bone tool to draw a bone for the right ear. I color it orange and name it right ear bone. I bind the right ear layer to this new bone using the Bind Layer tool. Finally, I use Select Bone, hold Shift, and select both ear bones. Then with the Bone Strength tool, I set their strength to 0. And that's it, the ears are now rigged properly. Now let's rig the eyebrows. I start by using the Add Bone tool to place a series of pin bones directly at the start, middle, and end points of each eyebrow. If needed, I can adjust their positions with the Transform Bone tool to align them perfectly. Then, using the Select Bone tool, I select all these pin bones, change their color to orange, and name them Eyebrow. This way, they'll automatically be named Eyebrow 1 to Eyebrow 6. Next, I reselect all these eyebrow pin bones and use the Bone Strength tool to set their strength to 0. Now, I add one more pin bone exactly between the two eyebrows using the Add Bone tool. In the Transform Bone properties, I set its X value to 0 to make sure it's perfectly centered. I name this central control bone eyebrow-control and color it red. Using the Select Bone tool again, I select all the eyebrow pin bones and reparent them to eyebrow-control using the Reparent Bone tool. Then, I select eyebrow-control itself and reparent it to the head bone. Now, I bind each pin bone to its corresponding eyebrow points in their respective layers using the Bind Points tool. Finally, I set the strength of eyebrow-control to 0 as well. To test the setup, I go to Frame 1 and use the Transform Bone tool to manipulate the eyebrow pin bones and make sure everything is working correctly. And just like that, the eyebrow rig is done. Now let's move on to eye rigging. First, I go to the eyes layer, and with the Add Points tool, while Bezier handles are enabled and Sharp Corners is turned off, I place a series of points along the eye outline. These points are positioned exactly at the edges of the upper and lower outlines of the eye. Next, I return to the Hilda group and use the Add Bone tool to place several pin bones on those exact eye outline points. I select these pin bones, name them Eyes-Pin Bone, and set their color to orange. Then, I add another pin bone between the two eyes. Name it Eyes-Control. Set its X value to 0 to make sure it's perfectly centered, and color it red. I select all the eye pin bones and the Eyes-Control bone, and set their bone strength to 0. Now, I select all the eye pin bones again, and reparent them to the Eyes-Control bone. Then I reparent the Eyes-Control bone to the head bone. After that, I go to the eyes layer, and bind each pin bone to the corresponding points using the Bind Points tool. I also enter the upper eye outline and lower eye outline layers and bind the pin bones to the matching points there too. Next, I head back to the Hilda group. With no bone selected, I use the Add Bone tool to draw a regular bone over the left pupil. Name it left pupil bone, and color it orange. I deselect it, then draw another regular bone over the right pupil, name it right pupil bone, and color it orange too. Then, I draw a pin bone between the two pupils. Name it pupil dash control, and color it red. I select both pupil bones and reparent them to pupil dash control. Then reparent pupil dash control to the head bone. Now I select the pupil bones and the pupil dash control bone and set their strength to 0. After that, I go to the eyes layer again and bind the pupils to their corresponding bones using bind points. To test the eye rig, I go to frame 1 and use the transform bone tool to manipulate the pin bones and make sure everything moves correctly. Oh, and one last step, make sure to reparent the pupil dash control bone to the eyes dash control bone. And that's it, the eye rig is done. Alright, now let's move on to rigging the mouth. The first thing to do is to make sure you're inside the mouth group and on one of the layers within that group. Right-click and go to Quick Settings, check the Paths option, and hit Apply. This will make the outlines and points of the layers visible in the viewport. Awesome! Now go back to the Hilda group and use the Add Bone tool to create several pin bones for the mouth area. Select all these pin bones and name them mouth dash pin bone. Next, go to the mouth cavity layer, one by one. Select each pin bone using the Select Bone tool, and then bind them to their corresponding points using the Bind Points tool. Perfect! Now change the color of these pin bones to orange for better organization. After that, go back to the Hilda group. While all the mouth pin bones are selected, set their bone strength to 0. Alright, now let's move on to the teeth. Using the Add Bone tool, add several pin bones for the upper teeth. Select them all and name them Teeth Dash Top Dash Pin Bone. Change their color to orange as well. Then add a pin bone right in the center of the upper teeth. Name it Teeth Dash Top Dash Control and set its color to red. Now, parent all the upper teeth pin bones to the Teeth Dash Top Dash Control bone. Also, set the strength of all those pin bones to 0. Then go to the upper teeth layer and bind each pin bone to its corresponding points using the Bind Points tool. Awesome! Repeat exactly the same steps for the lower teeth. Create pin bones, bind them to the appropriate points, and organize them like we did with the upper ones. I won't go into more detail, just follow the same process. Now for the tongue. Again, create a few pin bones, and just like before, bind them to the points. Do it yourself and practice. I'm not going to explain this part again. Great! Now that we're done with Hilda's tongue, go back to the Hilda group. With no bone selected, draw a regular bone horizontally across the center of the mouth, from left to right. Name this bone Mouth-Control, and set its color to red. Now parent the Mouth-Control bone to the head bone. Then parent all the mouth pin bones to Mouth-Control. Also, select all the teeth pin bones and tongue pin bones, and use the Reparent Bone tool to parent them to the Mouth-Control as well. Finally, set the bone strength of the mouth dash control bone to 0. And that's it for the mouth rig. Let's go ahead and test it now. Here's another tip. I select the center point of both the upper and lower teeth and increase their curvature using the curvature tool. This way, when I move their corresponding pin bones, the arc of the movement becomes smoother and more pronounced, giving a more natural and flexible deformation. I increase the curvature of the center points of the teeth to make the arc smoother when the pin bones move. Alright, now that the mouth rig is done, let's move on to rigging the hair. I stand on the Hilda group and use the Add Bone tool to place a pin bone at the top of the head, on the hair. I set its color to orange and name it Hair-Pin Bone. I set its X position to 0 to make sure it's perfectly centered. Next, I select this pin bone using the Select Bone tool, and with the Add Bone tool, I draw two bones extending downward for the front hair strands of Hilda. I select both of these bones, set their color to orange, and name them front hair bone. I set their strength to 0. Now I go to the front hair layer, select the Hair-Pin Bone, and bind the entire front hair layer to it using the Bind Points tool. While still in the front hair layer, I bind specific points of the layer to the front hair bones using the Bind Points tool again. Perfect! That's the front hair rig all set. Make sure that the first front hair bone is parented to the Hair-Pin Bone. Alright, now let's move on to rigging the back hair. First, I turn off all the layers inside the Hilda group and only keep the back hair layer visible. Now, while standing on the Hilda group, I select the Hair-Pin Bone using the Select Bone tool, and then I use the Add Bone tool to draw several bones in a chain from the top to the bottom of the back hair. Make sure the tip of each bone lines up properly with the key points of the back hair. Great! Now I use Select Bone to select all those bones I just created for the hair. I set their color to red and name them back hair bones. Then I set the bone strength to 0. Now I go into the back hair layer. I select the Hair-Pin Bone again, and using the Bind Points tool, I bind the relevant points of the back hair artwork to each bone accordingly. Looking good. I'll manipulate the bones a bit to check how everything behaves. Now I select the first back hair bone, go to Bone Constraints, and under Inverse Kinematics, I check Ignore IK for this bone so that it stays fixed and doesn't move. Next, for back hair bone 2 and back hair bone 3, I apply movement limitations under the Bone Constraints tab as well. Now let's move on to creating smart bones using actions for the back hair bones. I select back hair bone 2 and create an action for it. This way the hair movement behaves correctly during animation. I've already explained this process earlier in the section about scarf movement, so watch that part carefully and repeat the same steps here. No extra explanation needed. Awesome! Now I turn the head-related layers back on and do a bit of bone manipulation on the back hair to make sure everything looks good and works well. One final note about the hair rig: make sure to parent the hair pin bone to the head bone. So that when the head moves, the hair follows it properly. And that's it for the hair rig. Alright, now let's rig the hat. This one's as easy as pie, so you can handle it without any extra explanation. All it needs is just a pin bone and a single bone connected to the pom-pom. That's it. No need for more talk. We've done this 100 times already. Just get it done. One important note, make sure to parent the hat's pin bone to the head bone, so when the head moves, the hat follows along. Perfect. Now, I'll also set a movement constraint for the head bone underbone constraints, just to keep it in check. Let's go ahead and jump to frame 1, and using the transform bone tool, move some bones around to see what's going on, right? And now, the final note of this part. Once we turn on all the layers in the Hilda group, we notice something's off. When we manipulate the head bone, the scarf loop doesn't follow, it's detached, and that's not how it should be. Let's fix it. Here's how. Use the layer selector to click on the scarf loop, so we switch to the scarf loop layer. Then, with the select bone tool, select the head bone. Next, with the bind layer tool, click once in the viewport. This unbinds the scarf loop layer from the torso bone. Now again with select bone, select the head bone, and use the bind points tool to select the top points of the scarf loop. Click bind points so those top points get bound to the head bone. Next step, select the torso bone, and with the bind points tool, select the remaining points of the scarf loop layer and bind them to the torso bone. Then, go back to the Hilda group and manipulate the head bone to see how it looks. It's working not bad. But to improve it further, go back to the scarf loop layer, grab the add point tool, and add 1 point to each vertical edge of the scarf. Bind those new points to the torso bone as well. This gives us a smoother, more natural result. I think it looks really good now. And that's a wrap. And that wraps up part 6 of the Hilda rigging series. In this part, we gave Hilda's head a full rig, from the mouth, to the hair, to the hat, and even some final polish to bring everything together. As an animator, there's nothing more satisfying than seeing a character slowly come to life, one bone at a time, one smart action at a time. So if you've made it this far, I just want to say, I'm proud of you. Rigging isn't easy, it takes patience, precision, and a lot of trial and error. But every rig you build makes you a better artist. Keep going, keep experimenting, and most importantly, have fun with it. See you in part 7. Let's bring Hilda fully to life together. Until then, happy animating!